Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to Sunday School. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. This edition of Sunday School brought to you by friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery. We'll tell you a little bit more about them coming up a little bit later on in the show. But this show, I want to talk about something on offense. Sark's his offensive, kind of blueprint is built around certain principles and certain really foundational concepts. And one of them, I don't think we talk enough about. And we're going to get into that a little bit this week on Sunday School, the screen game, Steve Sarkisian and the screen game. And we'll talk about that a little bit and what it means for Sark's offense and how it is either a complement or a lot of people say that it's an extension of the run game. Either one. I've heard both of those. So we'll dive into the screen game here. I was actually looking at the screen rate this past season, and I was looking at some NFL numbers too, because what got me to thinking about the screen game for Sark is that the NFL actually has seen an increase in the screen rate all across the league. Last season in the NFL, there were 2,469 screens run. 1,000 of those actually went to wide receivers, which is also an increase, right? It's the highest rate or percentage to wide receivers in the last 3 years. And if you go look at overall, the screen rate in the NFL now is at 11% overall. Like that's the screen rate. That is the highest rate on record, highest screen rate on record since they've been keeping track of it. It actually hit over 10% for the first time in 2022. I know I was a little shocked about that too. Screen rate was over 10% for the first time in 2022. And for the third straight year, the screen rate in the NFL continued to rise. And I thought to myself, man, Sark is actually one of the best and most innovative, creative, brilliant screen play designers, period. But you see that play design, you see the brilliance of his play design, I think a lot of the time come to fruition in the screen game. I mean, he's very detail oriented, and you see that meticulous attention to detail really play out and really, I think, come to fruition and on full display in the screen game. And then when it is executed, when there's this exquisite execution with the screen game, man, from the all 22, it looks like a gridiron ballet when it's done right, especially the way Steve Sarkisian builds and constructs his screen game. So I thought about it, I was like, man, I wonder where Sark is in terms of screen rate and if he has, increased his screen rate over the years. And then I started doing some digging and found, the NFL, how about this number? 6 teams that had at least 100 screens. Now, this is in a 17-game regular season. We're not talking about the playoffs here. There are 6 teams that had at least 100 screens, 8 teams over 90 screens in 2024. This is in the NFL. In 2023, there were only 2 teams that surpassed 100 screens. And there were only 4 teams that had at least 90 screens. I know. And I thought about it, I was like, I think Sark has got to be above that number. Turns out he was right there. Sark was at 102 screens. So Sark even got over the threshold of getting to 100. And it's a little comparable. It's hard to find college football stats about averages. NFL is easier, of course, because it's the most popular sport in the country, right? And the most watched television program in the country. So it's easier to find these stats about averages. And now that you have the college football season, last year the Longhorns played 16 games, 17 games. And I know Sark has a pro-style offense. Sometimes it's easier just to kind of make those comparisons just to see where Sark is. Because I know Sark looks at the NFL for a lot of his innovation, and he looks at the NFL to help him solve a lot of problems, whether you're talking about administratively or you're talking about schematically on the field. All right, so let's continue. So I looked at it, I was like, okay, so Sark, turns out the NFL screen rate 11%. Sark last year was at 18% screen rate. All right, 18%. So he is way ahead of the NFL average, if you will, all right, in terms of his overall screen rate. And so his Sark is usually going to be between 15 right below 20%. Sometimes usually it's going to fall between there, where you're looking at a game-by-game basis or you're looking at a year-by-year basis for Sark. But the screen game is a big part of what Sark does. And so let's back up a little bit. We'll come back to Sark and his tendencies, trademarks, and signatures with screens and what makes his screen game so much more effective than other coaches' screen game. Talk about what a screen is. First of all, for those who don't know, screen is simply a passing play designed to get the pass catcher behind a screen of blockers or a blocker. Could just be one singular blocker, but you're trying to get the pass catcher behind a screen, all right, of a blocker or blockers. And they have lots of different types of screens. You got the bubble screens, you got tunnel screens, you got swing screens, you got traditional, traditional kind of running back screens, got throwback screens, screens for the wide receiver, screens for the running back, screens for the tight end, screen package for every skill position. And the reason, I think I break them down to two types of screens, right? You got all the different screens for positions and the specific, right, scheme that you're going to run with a screen. But as a defender, I would go, there are quick screens and there are delayed screens, right? A quick screen essentially is trying to complete the pass before the defense has a chance to get set up. So almost catch the defense by surprise. That's the quick screening. And sometimes they do that with like the quick RPO tag on a bubble screen out in the flats. They can do it with a swing screen, throwing to a target in motion. Maybe sometimes they have the lead blocker as the motion guy at times in a Sark screen. Just really quickly, a quick hitter. A smoke screen, which is a running wide receiver turns around, quick, boom, looks for the football, and boom, they get upfield as fast as possible before the defense can react or before the defense has a chance to process what's going on. The delayed screen is almost the complete opposite of that, in that you want the defense to react. Matter of fact, you want the defense to overreact. I want them to overreact. I want them to over pursue. Right, linemen essentially letting defensive linemen get upfield and deceive them. All right, so that they over pursue, so that they overcommit. Whatever the misdirection or the flow is going, or whatever the play fake to the, you want to occupy eyes with different fakes and play fakes to deceive the defender and try to get them going one way, and then boom, get the action flowing one way, and then get the actual play executed on some other part of the field, right? So the delayed screen is where you see a lot of the dramatic, a lot of the dramatic acting, number one, by offensive players, because the quarterback, he essentially has got to play a role. Everybody's playing a role in the delayed screen. Quarterback's got to play a role like he's looking downfield to get, and his body posture should say that, his eyes should say it for a little while, and sometimes quarterbacks will give it away with their posture or their eyes or their drop. It's supposed to look very similar to a downfield pass. So the defenders think, oh, I'm coming in to pressure and sack the quarterback. And then you can dump that screen right in behind them. And, the offensive linemen at times, also, they have to play a role. And they can't be too obvious that it's a screen, because defensive linemen are taught that if it's too easy, if the offensive lineman is letting you through too easy, then you may need to retrace your steps and backtrack. Read the body language of the lineman, read the body language of the running back out of that backfield or the quarterback, and then let your instincts take over. If it's too obvious, retrace your steps, get back downfield instead of rushing upfield to try to go impact the play. So defensive linemen, defenders, at least front seven defenders, are taught to be a little weary and look for the signs of a screen. It may be, if they're letting you through too easy, that's probably a reason they're letting you through too easy. So you can't make it obvious. And everybody on a delayed screen is playing a little bit of a role. All right. The quarterback, the running back, the offensive lineman. And I think most people kind of enjoy that, right? It's almost manipulating, because you got multiple plays, or at least you're trying to give the perception there are multiple plays happening at the same time simultaneously, when in fact, there's only one goal you're trying to execute, all right? And that's whatever that type of screen may be for the time being. All right, so now that we kind of talked about the screen and the different types of screens, let's talk about Sark's specific screen game and why Sark's screen game is so lethal and dangerous. Number one, Sark, you'll hear me say this a lot, right? Sark has a deception-based passing game. All about deception, RPOs, right? The RPO game, it makes you, a defender makes you wrong even when you're right. So it's a run-pass option. the play action pass. Sark is big in play action pass. RPOs are probably 50% of his passing game. The screen game, which is also using a lot of elements of deception embedded already in the play design, also tries to deceive a defender. And so that's 65, 70% of your passing game. And that's I call it like a deception-based passing game, because for Sark, those numbers for an offense are really high. That's 70% of your offense, either RPOs, play action passes, and screens. So getting back to the screens, this is why I even enjoy watching Sark's screens. I think that's the way the play design, the brilliance of his play design, I think is really on full display, because there's all these different elements, forms of deception happening simultaneously. First of all, just take any sample size. And I looked at big games for the Longhorns. I looked at both Georgia games, looked at OU, Michigan, Texas A&M, just kind of looking at some of the big games, and just to get a decent size sample. And I'm looking at that sample and looking at the screens in those games, you got misdirection on 85% of your screens in some way, form, or fashion. Sprint out with the quarterback, rolling the pocket with the QB, the play fake to the running back going one direction and the screen happening on the opposite side of the formation. It could be pulling an offensive lineman opposite of where the screen is happening. Jet motion, fly motion, you name it. There are a number of different ways how Sark implements the misdirection in order to get the flow going one way while the action is happening somewhere else. And the flow of the play, usually as a defender, takes you to the action. But not with Sark. The flow will deceive you. The flow of the play often will deceive you. And that's what he intends. That's the intention of it. So you got misdirection is one of the key elements of a Sark screen. It's going, like I said, 85% of the time, you're going to have some misdirection of some kind. And they get to that misdirection a lot of the time through motions and shifts. And looking at it, over 85% of your screen passes in that sample size I looked at had a motion or a shift in it. And at times, actually, it would have two players, what I call multi-motion, either two players motioning or shifting prior to the snap or at the time of the snap, or it would have one player motioning multiple times prior to the snap or at the time of the snap, which is also a way to really confuse and discombobulate defenders, because defenses must adjust to motion. Either because of the leverage, it changes the numbers on one side of the formation, it could change the coverage responsibilities, it could change a lot. Guy going into the backfield, from the backfield to the line of scrimmage, it could change a ton for the defense. So Sark loves to play with motion. And you guys know I love multi-motion and targets to motion. A lot of times in the screen game, a lot of samples that I looked at, you had that multi-motion I just talked about, or the guy in motion ended up being a target sometimes. There are times they ended up being a target in the screen game, the guy that was in motion, Sark trying to win the leverage battle there. And I thought, interestingly enough, to me, that's adding another element of deception or another cheat code to his screen game. I wouldn't track targets to motion. I've been tracking it for the last 4 years. The quarterbacks who target players in motion prior to the snap, at the time of the snap, averaging 9 yards per attempt here at Texas. I'm about Sark's QBs, averaging over 9 yards per attempt. If you go look at just last season, usually completion rate is hovering somewhere around 80+% as well. The explosive play rate was over 16% for targets to motion. Multi-motion plays last year, you averaged almost 7 yards per play on multi-motion plays. You had a first down touchdown rate over 30% on multi-motion plays, and you were over 8 yards per attempt. So some of those screens that I talk about were multi-motion plays and targets to motion, just adding another layer of complexity to the Sark screen. Play fakes, play fake or pump fake, RPO, because sometimes it'll, the screen is kind of the tag on the RPO, the bubble screen in the flat, the tag on an RPO, for example. Play action pass, just simple, play action pass, more traditional play action pass, or pump fakes. Pump fakes are a big part of Sark's screen game at times. Pump fake in one direction and going back the other direction. Actually, there are times where there's multiple pump fakes that we've seen on a Sark screen. So that is something that I've noticed, that there's either play action pass, a play fake, RPO fake, or ends up being a pump fake. At least 50%. Or at least 50% of the samples I've looked at on all your screens, you're going to have that element, that added element of, deception on the play. So it's so many layers to it. If one of those forms of deception don't catch a defender's attention, then the other one will. Right? If the pre-snap motion and shift don't get you up by one or two players, all right, the misdirection, the flow of the play may get you, or the play fake may get you. He's trying to give you as a defender way too much to process in a short amount of time. And all he needs you to do is be a step slow, or be a half a second slow in processing what you're seeing, or just your eyes occupied, right? Undisciplined eyes, guys staring at all of the cheat codes that he's utilizing on that screen, and that's all he needs. One defender out of place, and he can pop it. And I think that's what most people love about the Sark screens, is the complexity of the screens. They're just so multi-layered in that sense. And so I was looking at the completion rate, and by the way, I don't think I've heard Sark say. I've heard Ryan Day say this, that the completion percentage on screens should be 85%. The NFL average on screens, I went and looked that up, is 86%. Quinn was at 85%. Arch was at 90%. You're right where you need to be. You got to be at it doesn't make it worth it if it's a high percentage passing play. Even if you complete it, even if you don't break it for a big one, you should still complete it. Because it's supposed to be an easy completion, all right? And a quarterback-friendly offense with a high screen rate, that's going to help your completion percentage stay real high too. But what I like about it, with Sark's complexity and all the different elements, all the cheat codes that he embeds and bakes into his plays, the potential for big plays. That's what I like about Sark's screen. I went and tracked the explosive plays for Texas, 20-plus yard gains. And the ones they had in the passing game, I believe it was 80 total in the passing game. They had explosive plays of 20 yards or more. 10% of those were screens. I got 4 traditional running back screens. 4 of those were wide receiver screens that you just broke for explosive plays. Your explosive play rate on screens was right below 8%. That's not bad for screens. Your first down touchdown rate was amazing. Your first down touchdown rate, 33%. Actually, probably could have been higher. There was some discrepancy about the numbers, first downs or touchdowns, but it probably could have been higher. It's at least 33%, which is a really good number. That a third of your screens result in a first down or a touchdown, basically. So I think the explosive play rate, I think that's really good, considering it is a play that's not really designed to get you huge chunk yardage, but it does at times. I mean, sometimes I think, and Sark uses screens on first down, second down, third down. I wish I could tell you there was some situation where he's more likely to use a screen than another, but I couldn't find one just looking at tendencies and trends watching film, which is really good, by the way. That's really good in my opinion, that Sark doesn't necessarily have a tendency that he is likely to run a screen in this situation. And like I said, the types of screens, tight end screens, wide receiver screens, running back screens, he's got them all. And Sark averaging right now around 6.3 screens per game. Last year, there was around the same. He's around 6.3. That was a slight minimal increase, minuscule, if you will, this past season. But he's around 6.3. You're going to see about 6 screens a game from Sark. And there's some big games. I think A&M, he had more. If you play against a more aggressive defense, he'll probably throw in more screens. About 6 per game. So, you go look at it, and Sark's average yards per screen, he's at 6.6 average yards per screen. I was wondering, where that is in terms of effectiveness. The NFL right now, average yards per screen, they're right at 5. Like a little right below 5 yards per screen. They were at 5.9 yards per screen in 2010. Now they're 4.9, like 4.96. So you can round it up to say it's 5 yards per screen. Sark's at 6.6 yards per screen, which is pretty good. And like I said, they're top 20 in the FBS based on what I have been able to gather in screen rate. 85th percentile, if you will, in terms of screen rate. So it is a core of Sark's, is one of the core principles, concepts of Sark's offense. So I felt, hey, man, let's dive into it and talk about it a little bit. So that's Sark in the screen game. I do think he'll pretty much stay. I would say young quarterbacks I've seen when Malik was in there, when Malik Murphy played a couple of starts in 2023, and with Arch in his couple of starts that he had this past season, the screen rate did increase slightly. I think Malik was around 20. I think Arch was around 19%, which makes sense, right? Easy completions. It's a high percentage throw for a young quarterback. So, hey, why not put more of those into the offense when you have an inexperienced QB? Now, will that translate to the start of the 2025 season? I'm not really sure. I think Sark's screen rate hovers, I say around, I'm probably predicting about the same, about 18%. I would like the explosive play rate, though, to go up for the screen passes. Like I said, it's right around 8% is not bad. If you could get that explosive play rate for your screen game up to 9%, somewhere around there, that'd be phenomenal, considering what a core concept it is for you. You're sorry. All right, there you go. Enough of me rambling about screen game. Appreciate you guys taking the time. Let's thank our very good friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery for sponsoring this edition of Sunday School. Did you know the most awarded wine in Texas is actually the vineyard closest to Austin? That's right, folks. Flat Creek Estate Winery is just minutes from downtown Austin, and they've won award after award this year for their vintage wine, Super Texan. Super Texan is now available at your local Specs, so you can give it a try. I saw a display at our local Central Market here in Austin as well. So the good word is getting out about the great wines from Flat Creek Estate Winery. Of course, Flat Creek not only produces some of the best premium wines on the market, but also they have a gorgeous venue with barbecues and wine tastings every single weekend, perfect for a day date with your significant other or a weekend getaway with your significant other. I've actually got a chance to tour the grounds there at Flat Creek Estate. It is fabulous, folks. Fantastic. No matter what the occasion, they can accommodate you. As a matter of fact, we had a member of the On Texas football family get engaged out there at Flat Creek Estate Winery. So trust me, no matter who you're taking out there, they'll love it. You'll love it. It's worth your time. FlatCreekEstate.com. And thank you to Flat Creek Estate for their continued support of On Texas football and sponsoring this edition of Sunday School. All right. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes as well. Can't do without Matthew. He's the real MVP. And thanks to each and every one of you for joining us here on Sunday School. Really appreciate you taking the time. And for Matthew and for our friends at Flat Creek Estate Winery, I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Until next time, hook 'em horns.